get started. Okay, so tonight we're gonna do. It's gonna be Likutei Halachot basically, but it's a book called Otzar Hayira, which is basically Likutei Halachot just expanded a lot, and all the places in Likutei Halachot, Likutei Moharan, Likutei Halachot specifically, all the places where it mentions Pesach, we're gonna discuss. So there's smaller pieces, but we can get a lot out of it, and Sichat Hashem will take a lot of practical things out of it. But first, we're going to start with the actual Likutei Halachot that Rabbi Natan wrote, and this was added collection that was later bringing down all the places in Likutei Halachot, specifically which Likutei Halachot does not mention. It only mentions Likutei Moharan. So we're going to do this, and Sichat Hashem, we can get a lot out of it. So first, we'll start with Likutei Halachot from Likutei Moharan, and then after we'll go into the Inyan with Likutei Halachot, what it says, what Rabbi Natan says about Pesach, and all this stuff. So, first small pieces. Yemei Nisan, hem yemei tshuva kemo tishrei. So first thing to know is that Nisan, the month of Nisan, are days of tshuva like Tishrei are. Like Tishrei is. So it has the same inyan, and we know specifically Tishrei has very deep inyanim with tshuva. So Nisan, know that it has the same thing. And we're going to discuss a lot of Tikkun Brit, which Nisan is very, very special about. And as we know that the Ikar of Kriyat Yam Suf, the splitting of the sea, was done by Yosef in the merit of Yosef. It says in the Zohar Kadosh that when the sea saw Yosef's bones, which we know Moshe was carrying, and not even for 1 year, since he brought them out of Egypt, he was carrying them for 40 years. Imagine, 40 years he was carrying the bones of Yosef in the desert and everything. So it was a very big task. But it says that when when the sea saw Yosef's bones, it split. As we know, Hashem came down to the sea and told the angel of the sea to split the Yam Suf, and he didn't agree. He said no, until it saw the bones of Yosef, and then it said okay. Why? Because it says about Yosef, Vayanos and Vayetze, and like he fled and he left from Eshet Potiphar, from the wife of Potiphar that tried to seduce him. Immediately he fled and he left. And what did it say about the sea? It said it fled. It used the same language, Vayanos. About the Kriyat Yam Suf, if you look at the language in the Torah, it says it fled. Why? To draw the connection between the fleeing of Yosef and the fleeing of the sea. To show that the sea split in the merit of Yosef. So it also has to do with the Brit, because we know Yosef is called Yosef Tzaddik because he withstood that test of the Brit. And yeah, so we're going to discuss this right now. Nisan hu prinat tikkun Brit. Nisan is the same aspect as rectifying the Brit. And through simcha, through joy, we are able to draw the kedusha and the simcha of Nisan, the holiness and the joy of Nisan, throughout the entire year. With simcha, this one mitzvah, it's like you think you can. There's only one time of the year where you can do Pesach. He's saying you can actually bring in the aspect of matzah and do the mitzvah of matzah the entire year. He's saying this with any mitzvah. You can do the mitzvah of sukkah with any time. As long as you're drawing the connection that thing represents. So, for example, sukkah represents Emunah. We say in the Zohar, it's Siyad Dimenuta, I think. It's a shade of Emunah. So if you have Emunah, you're able to draw the Kedusha of Sukkot. You're doing the mitzvah of Sukkah outside of Sukkot. Meaning the mitzvah of Sukkah can be done any time of the year. It's not just drawn for that specific time, as long as you connect to what it symbolizes. So here Rabbi Nachman is saying that through Simcha, you're able to draw the Kedusha and the Simcha of Nisan throughout the entire year completely. Meaning it's not only Nisan the entire year, just Nisan. It can be the entire year as long as you constantly remain happy and you draw on the Kedusha of this month. And when you're happy, what do you attain? You attain the rectification of the Brit. We know this in Sichat Chaverim. What Rabbi Nachman says, you cannot really attain the Kedusha of the Brit without first going through Simcha. To really attain the Kedusha of the Brit and to prevent yourself from sexual impurity, you have to actually have a lot of Simcha. You have to force yourself to be happy. And it says the antithesis of the female angel that we know, Lili, we're not going to finish the name, that thrives off the impurity of the Jewish, like when a Jew defiles himself sexually and all this stuff. Lili, who really gets her control of that, cannot survive whenever she sees a Jew being happy. It's the exact opposite. You kill her. So with Simcha,
where did that say that? Who says that?
Rabbi Nachman, Sichat Chaverim, saying joy is the antithesis of the angel that thrives and that pushes itself off this. And Rabbeinu says that Simcha has this power to help you attain the Kedusha of the Brit that nothing else can. Saying to really attain the Kedusha of the Brit, to purify yourself from all these sins that is very common in this generation, unfortunately. You have to be constantly happy. And that's why you see Rabbeinu was saying, it's a very big mitzvah to be always happy and all this stuff, because it's such a key thing, because it's such a key element. Once you have the Brit, you have everything, we know. Brit comes from the Sfira of Yesod. Everything is Sfira of Yesod, the attribute of God called Yesod. What's Yesod? Foundation. The Brit is the foundation of everything, and we know in the Pasuk, Im chukot shamayim va'aretz, Im lo bariti yomam v'layla, if not for my Brit, day and night, chukot shamayim va'aretz, the laws of heaven and earth, lo santi, would have never been placed. Meaning, if not for the Brit, the world would have never been created. Some say it's a Torah, but truthfully, if you translate it pshat, Briti, it's the Brit Minah. So the Brit Minah is what keeps the entire world standing. And further Kedusha of the Brit, how do you attain that? Through Simcha. And how do you say that? To save yourself from, what do you call it? All this stuff at night that happens, whatever it is. And through Simcha, you're able to protect yourself from this. So he's saying a guarantee to protect yourself from all this sexual defilement and stuff like that is Simcha, happiness. We're going to see a little bit more about how to attain Kedushat Brit here also, another way, which we studied in lesson 5 also. Haggadah shel Pesach hu tikun Brit. Saying the Haggadah Pesach represents tikun Brit, rectifying the Brit. The speaking of the Haggadah in itself is a rectification for the Brit. But there's a very specific Breslover custom on Pesach, we're going to explain later, to scream. The entire Pesach, you have to scream loudly. In your tefillah, in the Haggadah, you have to say the Haggadah loudly. It was a very big thing that Rabbi Nathan would scream his Haggadah. Very big, and we're going to explain why.
Don't people normally just read it out loud?
Yeah, but the entire inyan is to go louder than usual. Because the voice has a very specific power to arouse yourself to do tshuva. We were talking about this in lesson 5, where we said the voice, Hakol me'orer hakavana. The voice arouses the heart, right? But it's to straighten the thunder and to straighten the crookedness of the heart. But all this stuff that we're not going to get into. But
voice can't be thunder unless, so the point is, by reading the Haggadah, your voice becomes thunder. Is that the idea?
What?
By reading the Haggadah, your voice becomes thunder. Is that the idea?
By reading the Haggadah loudly, your voice can be converted into thunder.
Right. And then that will straighten out your heart.
Mm-hmm. Meaning the voice in itself, if you're just speaking out loud, yes, speaking has a very specific power. Like, right when you do it, speaking the word, not just thinking where you want to be, but speaking where you want to be, creates an actual element of physicality. You draw down something physical there. Now you have the chance to actually be there. Like we know our words create angels, can create worlds and destroy worlds. Words have a very specific power. Ari and I were discussing a very beautiful chidush we heard. This inyan that word is more powerful than action. Speech. It's crazy because it's elevated to the point where there's nothing quantifiable, right? Like with the word you can do tshuva. Breaking your heart with your words can help you do tshuva. You can do things with words that you can't do with action. Like we're hearing something crazy. Like Aaron HaKohen, when he decided to go with the plot of the Egel HaZahav, not God forbid to say that he wanted to say that he was trying to trick them so that he would buy himself time so that Moshe could come down. What did Aaron do? He didn't build the Egel. He didn't say let's do the Egel. He actually did the action. He said he told everyone to go get their gold, but it's not like he said, okay, let's go build the Egel HaZahav. He was the one who manifested it in action, but there was no speech there. It was like, because he knew the power of speech. When you speak something, you create something. We also know Aaron's brother-in-law, Hur,
I think so.
right? Miriam's husband.
Yeah, it is.
Hur, he spoke against and immediately was killed. Aaron decided to zip. Because he knew with word you can either create himself or destroy. So speech in itself is a very, very big thing that we cannot even grasp. So here, the Haggadah represents Tikkun Brit. Al ken omrim Haggadah bekol ram. This is why we say the Haggadah in a very, very loud voice. Ki hakol me'orer hadat. Because we said the voice arouses the da'at, the intellect. And through this, you're able to merit what? A revelation of that. When you arouse your voice, when you speak your voice, the voice hits the mind. We're talking about this in lesson 5. The voice hits the mind, and if the mind is pure, it's able to convert that voice into what we call thunder. And what is thunder? What do the Chachamim say? the world was not, thunder was not created, except only to what? To straighten the crookedness of the heart. So look at the steps here. First, the voice. The voice then strikes the mind. Rabbi Nachman says in lesson 5, we're not going to get into exactly how and everything. But once the voice strikes the mind, if your mind is pure, if you're meriting, then what happens? The mind converts that voice. Now you have a collision of mind and voice. That mind converts the voice into what? Thunder. And what is thunder there for? It's only there to straighten the crookedness of the heart. That's what the Chachamim in the Gemara say. So, what's the heart? Why crookedness of the heart? Because to attain true happiness, true joy, you have to have a straight heart. Because what did it say in the Pasuk? Or zahu ala tzadik, ul yishchelev simcha. Right? Or zahu ala tzadik, ul yishchelev. That the straight-heartedness, simcha, will be happy. Meaning, only if you have a straight heart, only if you have a heart that has no crookedness, can you be happy. And how do you remove the crookedness? With loud voice, specifically. So when you expel your voice with lots of power, and specifically in the Haggadah comes from the word lehagi, to tell. Meaning it's the exact inyan of speaking. So when you...
Same inyan of Pesach that we talked about before, with Arizal.
Pesach.
The idea is to speak it out.
Pesach is a play on the words pe, the mouth, sach, that speaks, that converses. The entire inyan of Pesach is about the mouth, the speech. We know Pesach has a very big power to feed our... We can explain something really nice, actually, that I was working on. According to Likutei Halachot, actually something I found in here, which was extremely beautiful. We'll get to it after this. But
it's Pesach, right? The idea is like we're talking about how you need to generate words, what's coming out of your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Also, very specific what goes into your mouth. Obviously, all your kosher, but specifically to chametz, the whole inyan. So you can argue the whole inyan of Pesach is brought down just
wow, that's
like
nice.
that Rizal says Pesach.
Very cool.
It's beautiful.
That's actually very nice. On that inyan of matzah and chametz, that's what I was saying. Like, the voice can only be converted into thunder once it strikes the mind, if your mind is pure enough. And how is your mind pure? If you don't let chametz get into it. Chametz is not something physical, it's spiritual also. Meaning there's chametz are machshavot ra'ot, they're bad thoughts, they're himurim ra'im, they're bad intentions. It's like that.
It's like we're cleansing ourselves the all year round chametz. It's like an 8-day mikvah for your mind.
Exactly. But we have to prepare in advance to get rid of our chametz before Pesach, or else we won't have it prepared. We'll have chametz in our mind. Meaning, it's all about the preparation. Bi'u chametz before and everything. So you really have to remove all the chametz of our mind in order that we really attain the kedusha of the matzah. Because even the matzah will only have not such a lasting effect if we still have chametz. And what's chametz? Philosophies. We're about to get into this. The idea of covering everything else within nature. Covering everything up within nature. It's crazy, right? We had a big discussion about this. This inyan of faith. What's faith? It's simple faith. Believing that God is in control of everything, and that even nature in itself is God's will. Meaning there's no such thing as logic anymore. Because logic in itself was created by God. So, once you understand that everything is God's providence, hashgacha pratit, it's divine providence, then you can't cover anything up with it, just nature. The reason why this happened was because it makes sense that this and this, or whatever. It's nonsense.
God created nature.
What's up?
God created nature.
Exactly. What we call Mother Nature in Hebrew.
God is nature, like the whole argument makes no sense.
Yeah. It's called Em Kol Chai, the mother of nature. Em Kol Chai. What does everyone call nature? The philosophers, Mother Nature.
Oh, they got it from us.
But the mother of nature, they allude nature to the mother, but what is the mother? It's the creator of nature.
You know, I heard this cool thing. I was looking on this Instagram account, and Rafi Press, he said it, he just talked about it. It was cool. He said something about why Moshe Rabbeinu, whenever he went up to Har Sinai, he saw the back of Hashem's head, and he's saying how come it was the back of Hashem's head, and he's telling Moshe Rabbeinu even you sometimes you can't understand everything, and that it's above logic. And he says sometimes you have to go above logic, and you can't just rely on logic, and you have to depend on Emunah itself. It was sick. He gave it was a 1 minute powerful speech. I was like, wow, that's sick.
Meaning you're not seeing the face, you're seeing the back.
But
you don't understand it.
We'll play it after, it's not the show, but it was really cool. Is what he said.
So, saving yourself from chametz is what? Removing all philosophies, living with simple faith. This is what Rabbeinu brought down when he was very young. He said, the one thing I'm here to do in this world is to bring down faith to people. That's the entire inyan. If you want to summarize one word of Likutei Moharan and everything B'Chasav, it's Emunah. It's one word. That's why the first thing in Likutei Halachot is what? Emet ve'emunah.
If you want to summarize Judaism.
It's true. You're right. I mean, there's different... It's not... I mean, there's different facets in the way people approach things. Finding God. Yeah. What? Loving every Jew?
Like Rabbi Akiva, the whole thing with Rabbi Akiva.
Yeah? It's true. Yeah, that's the inyan of Brit, that's the inyan of Chassidut. Yeah, Azamra, finding the good.
That's why I'm confused why Rabbi Akiva is not one of the...
From the inyan, Rabbi Akiva was part of the same soul as Moshe.
That's what I was thinking. Like, it was like, if I were to like elect another one, it'd be him. I don't know if
it's crazy. Yeah, Rabbi Akiva
is very pretty everything. Just
put him in parentheses, dude.
Rabbeinu always bring down Rabbi Akiva to say that the roots of Chassidut are in Rabbi Akiva. The way of the Baal Shem Tov was in the Baal Shem Tov bring this down. The way of Rabbi Akiva was the way of Chassidut. It says Rabbi Akiva would start praying and would start on one side of the room and end up on the completely other side. Like imagine you're praying right here and you end up at the restaurant 4 blocks down by the end of his prayer. That's the way you do, because you can't stay in one place. You feel like it's too dry, you know? This is the way of Chassidut. It's the way the Baal Shem Tov student, the way he brought down into the world. It's to live it up, you know, to feel the tefillah. That's what it is. But what we're getting back to, save yourself from chametz. And when you save yourself from chametz, then you can bring this revelation of awareness. Because what did it say? What did the Chachamim say? When you have that, you don't lack anything. So I think it's in Pirkei Avot. I don't know. I could be wrong, but there's this inyan that when you have that, you have everything. It says the one who has that is as if he built the Beit HaMikdash himself. So having that literally can, up there, once you go up, they'll tell you, you built the Beit HaMikdash. And you'll say, I didn't see the Beit HaMikdash. But by telling them that you had that, you built the Beit HaMikdash. So there's a inyan here that how do you build that? When you expel the voice in strength. And you're aware of it. So, what did he say? That whenever you arouse your voice to speak loudly the Haggadah, the voice then awakens the the intellect. And through this, you're able to bring the revelation of the intellect. You're able to bring it out. Whenever you have that, you have the redemption. Because as we were just saying, also, the Beit HaMikdash is this aspect of redemption also. It's something to add there. When you have that, it's as if you built a Beit HaMikdash. So, here, when you have that, you reveal that. This is the essence of Geulah. Ki galut Mitzrayim haya al pegam adat. So he is explaining another shot. The galut Mitzrayim, the exile of Egypt, was based on what? Because we blemished that, the intellect. How? Shehu pegam adat. Galut Mitzrayim haya al pegam Brit. Shehu pegam adat. Because he said that the exile in Egypt was all because we blemished the Brit. And what's the blemishing of the Brit? The blemishing of the dat, as we talked about this many times. The Arizal writes that at the time of Adam HaRishon, after the sin with Chava and the tree and everything, he separated from Chava for 130 years. Quite some time. And Rabbi Natan said this is the waiting period before you come close to the path of Tshuva. He said you have to wait. And it's so hard at the edge of the door. That's why it says Abraham was waiting at the edge of the tent in the heat of the day. Meaning the Yetzirah is building up, the heat, it's Yetzirah. It's standing at the edge of the tent. So right when you're at the edge of the tent, the Yetzirah builds up. So for 130 years, Adam is wondering, where's Hashem? He's screaming out to him. And 130 years later, he married Tshuva. He came back with Chava and they had Shet and everything. But for 130 years, it said he wasted seed and everything, and that is Pegama Brit, obviously. You're blemishing the Brit. But what is, in truth, its spiritual blemish, the blemishing of the Brit? You blemish that because seed originates in the mind, from the brain, and where it travels through the spine and everything. So when you blemish the Brit, you blemish the mind, the dat. So what did the Achidah say? Because Adam had sinned for 130 years and had wasted, so he sinned with demons and everything, and fantasy and everything. Those souls that he had lost were reincarnated into the generation of the flood. And because the flood, the generation of the flood, sinned the same sin again, this is in Etz Chaim, I think, they got reincarnated into the generation of the Dor HaFlaga, which is what? The generation of dispersion. The people, that's Nimrod who tried to build the Tower of Babel.
But the mikveh didn't rectify.
Those were only some people. But they have to do an awakening from below, you know? So it rectified maybe whatever it is.
So
it was a
Adam
mikveh.
Rishon, so it's never rectified. It's never been rectified. It's not.
We rectified it in Egypt.
Oh really? So what are we fixing now? I got Zav and Moharan.
Yeah.
And
We're also adding our own sins, unfortunately, on top of it.
Brit is the biggest one.
Now it's come back, unfortunately. But we say that the Jews in Egypt kept 4 sins, right? They kept 4 mitzvot. They kept 4 things. The Brit, the language. They kept the language, the clothing, the what do you call it?
The Brit.
And the Brit also. The language, the clothing, the Brit, and their names, right? Yeah. So those 4 things. The Brit though.
So technically, if we fixed the Adam Rishon sin at Har Sinai or through Yetziat Mitzrayim and everything, that means we can fix our own Shemata Brit in Nisan.
For sure.
That's crazy.
His sin
Haggadah.
created this entire world.
True.
So if you fix it, then there wouldn't be a world.
The entire essence of fixing, I mean, the Brit is the final test, right?
Yeah. No, but then, it's a good con. We already fixed it though.
We fixed the part, but now we got it back, though. We got it back.
Oh yeah.
Because look at us now. Look at today. The entire thing Rabbeinu says is the Brit.
I think I want to say 100%. No, 99.999.
It's tough, bro.
Of the world, like, it's so bad.
It's very difficult. He says the ikar of tavot, the essence of evil desires, stem from the Brit. It's sexual impurity that gathers up. That's the real test of today's generation. Rabbeinu says.
They replaced the Avodah Zarah.
Of course.
No
way.
How they took Avodah Zarah out.
And with the
prophecy.
And then at first they took also sexual immorality
but
out, and then like there's no like none of the like.
they realized there was no.
They realized like they can't take it away completely because everyone.
Even man wouldn't even have
man.
it. That's crazy.
The animals
put it back. They said instead of Avodah Zarah, now you're gonna have a major increase in
Sexual impurity.
I thought
it's very tough.
I thought to make up for Nebuah, to make up for Avodah, they took Nebuah too. No.
They might have taken both, but either
That
way,
they taken it out.
Wow. So there's deep inyanim, and
Dude, do I really look at him?
and there's what do you call it?
No,
What were you saying about the dat, right? When you blemish the Brit, you blemish the dat, because that's where seed originates. And the Arizal was saying, and I'll get to something about what Rabbeinu says is the Yetzirah today, but the Arizal says the generation of the flood, because they didn't fix the sin of Adam, got reincarnated into the generation of dispersion, which is where they built the Tower of Babel. And because they didn't fix it, those souls got reincarnated in Egypt. And after 130 years in which Yaakov had suffered and suffered, it said he lived 17 years in Egypt. Why? Because after 130 years, what were the 130 years he lived for? All suffering, to repair the 130 years of the sin of Adam. And where was he going to find? What was he going to find in Egypt? The souls that were reincarnated from Adam, to go find them and to go build life there in Egypt, to rectify that sin also. So he suffered for Adam the 130 years to rectify the Adam sin, and then all those souls that needed rectification, he went down to Egypt to go retrieve them, because he saw that all the souls got reincarnated there at the Jewish people. And that's the entire galut. It was the galut of the dat, of intellect. And when we went down to Egypt and we got redeemed early, we were redeeming because they had kept the Brit and all this stuff. And why is Kriyat Yam Suf split?
We received the ultimate dat on the other side, Torah and.
Exactly. The Torah was given after 40 days and everything. So there's deep things here. And what did Rabbeinu say? In Likutei Moharan, he writes that the Ikar of the Yetzirah is called the Koach HaMedameh. He says don't call the Yetzirah anymore. It says it's one name. The strength of the imagination. What's the imagination? The same way, it's the exact opposite of that. It's pegama that, it's blemishing the that.
You don't know, like you're just imagining it.
It's fantasy.
Right.
Isn't the Yetzirah like imaginary?
That's quite a line.
I mean,
that's
you can't see it. It's
I mean, the Yetzirah is not there. It's an illusion. You're right. Totally.
You imagine it.
Totally.
Like you're the one that brings it into existence.
You're saying it's not.
Koach HaMedameh.
No, but
It's fantasy. It's imagination. It's exactly that. It's exactly that.
It's just you. But I think that's what Rizal was saying.
It's exactly that.
That is what the Yetzirah is.
That's
The
exactly
part
what
of
the
you
Yetzirah
that
is.
But
thinks.
you were saying something sick. I think you were saying that how do you get him out? It's like, imagine the Yetzirah, he comes into your head. Imagine you have a house, right? You just buy a house, a brand new house, you're not living in it yet. The Yetzirah barges in like he owns the place, and he's laying down on the floor. Right, takes the bathroom and you get into the house, you're like, oh, get the heck out of here, what are you doing? How do you do? You scream to get him out, right? Get out. So every time you have a bad thought or something, you scream, out, like, get out, like that. And you'll see the Yetzirah will just dip out of your head and you're like, nice, you know?
But the halakha was insane that he gave. And Rabbi Nathan writes the most beautiful sod on this halakha. There's a halakha in Shulchan Aruch that writes, you know those squatters that take over places, like there's a place under construction or
oh, that's
called
what
squatters.
It was. Right, that's what it was.
People that go in live in places that are under construction or like abandoned, right?
Okay, fine.
That's why they have Joseph security right there.
I think there's a halakha that if you find a squatter inside a home, if the owner of that property comes within 3 years of its of its abandonment or whatever, since the squatter sat down there first, if he comes within, the squatter has to leave. But the second, after 3 years, you don't. It's like you just leave it be, and 5 years later you come, you can't take him out. It's his property. And it's the entire inyan of this Yetzirah. If you let the Yetzirah live in here for 3 years, there's an entire idea about the 3. I forgot the 3 years. But it's fascinating. You can't let the Yetzirah live in here. Meaning, even if you realize it's in there and you can't help it, you have to scream to get it out. Because at least you're doing your part to tell Hashem that I don't want it here.
You know what I thought he was going to connect it to, the 3? I thought he was going to say that, like, you start really feeling like a connection, I guess, to when you go to Rabbi Yochanan 3 times. Like, I feel like when you're there at your third time, at your third time, you're like, it's totally different than your first.
Same thing for like good and bad, 100%.
Then what?
Like Moshe was talking about Shulchan Aruch, like he said Shulchan Aruch, the squatter then, like Chazaka is like no, like once you have Chazaka anything, like you're merged, like now, so there, whatever happens, like it's now like official.
So there's something about like wearing Rabbeinu Tam tefillin. Once you wear it 3 times, if you don't wear it again after that, it's like you didn't put on tefillin that day.
Wow.
Oh, that's not good. No,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Chazaka 3 times. When you do something 3 times, you set a standard.
Moshe put on Rabbeinu Tam, huh? You do the double, right?
For Rabbeinu, very important to wear Rabbeinu. Because look, if we understand, this is the depth of it. If you understand that the entire test of the Yetzirah is up here, he says, you know the beautiful story of the Baal Shem Tov. One day, a king set up an obstacle course around his palace. He said the first person to pass it will win all the treasures. Entire obstacle course, this and this, flaming rings you have to go through and everything. First person, like, okay, I'm trying this. Second, he peeks out at the obstacle course. He's like, no way. He leaves. First one outside the door. Everyone's looking, the entire crowd builds up. No. One person is like, you fools. You do realize it's all an illusion. The guy starts walking, eyes closed. Walks. Gets through the entire thing. Not a hair burnt, nothing there. That's the Yetzirah. The Baal Shem Tov explains. Yetzirah is an entire illusion. That's what Rabbeinu is saying. Don't call the Yetzirah. Call it the Koach HaMedameh, the strength of the imagination. Because if you can conquer your imagination, like what we say here is that. I mean, what's the entire test of the Yetzirah? We said it's sexual defilement, right? Sexual impurity. But it's here. Exactly, it's up here. Where's the root of sexual impurity? It's that. It's awareness. When you have that, you don't have Yetzirah. Because what does Rabbeinu say? Rabbeinu says, how can the Yetzirah test you? Only if you have taken away from you that. Because if you have full that, there's no test in the first place. If you're aware of the fact that you shouldn't be doing this, and you're truly aware of the sod behind it and the secret behind it, what really the damage it does, which is what that is called, then there's no test in the first place. It's a very big sod. It's good, bro. You good? Baruch Hashem, bro. Toda. You're good, bro. So Daniel, we're just studying the Sod of Pesach, according to the Ari. The Ari HaKadosh writes that the entire Galut of Mitzrayim was based upon one sin, Pegam Brit, destroying the Brit. And what's really the spiritual root of destroying the Brit? You're blemishing the dat, the awareness, because it says seed originates in the mind. So if seed comes from the mind and then travels through the spine and everything, truthfully, when you're blemishing the Brit, you're blemishing the dat. And what did the Chachamim say? When you have that, you lack nothing. And when you have that, it's as if you built the Bet HaMikdash. So the entire Geulah comes from an awareness, a dat, a hit galut. You bring to revelation that. What's that? It's awareness of God. It's understanding that God is here. That you live with Hashem. It's understanding your space with Hashem. That Hashem is here, that He's constantly helping you, that you're in the same space and connection with Him. That. It's awareness of God.
In our context, is God considered conquering imagination?
Totally. Because when you have that, you're conquering medameh. Medameh is the aspect of the animal. That is the aspect of man. What's that? It's sechel, it's awareness, it's intellect. You have an understanding that goes beyond the animalistic desires that we all have. The animalistic desires is koach medameh, strength of the imagination. But what's the level above animal? There's 4 levels, right? There's inanimate, there's plant, there's animal, and then there's human. What's human? It's that. It's awareness, it's sechel, it's intellect, it's chokhmah, it's wisdom. What's animal? Animal. It's
I thought
the temptation.
I thought the main difference between like us and every other thing was the dibuch, was the speech.
But what do we say? What does speech do? It's all connected. With expelling your voice loudly, bekoram, you're able to bring a revelation of that. That's a beautiful thing, as you were just saying, and it's great.
That you're able to.
So where's the actual root of it? It's speech. Why does Rabbeinu emphasize so much hitbodedut? Because with hitbodedut, you create an actual hitgalut adat. That's why Rabbeinu says, with hitbodedut, you can attain true simcha. Because first you have to break your heart to attain simcha.
Could you create that same thunder as we talked about in lesson 5 with hitbodedut? Because lesson 5 talks specifically about tefillah, it seems.
But tefillah is hitbodedut.
Fine, so.
It's a koach of tefillah.
Is it like a special niyan to scream during hitbodedut?
Oh yeah.
That's
Moshe loves the screaming. We know that.
I remember that one. But the point is we shouldn't care. To attain true simcha, there's many different methods. Rabbeinu writes, sometimes you have to pretend. Pretending is one of the hard ones because sometimes you have to suck up your kavod a little bit.
Pretending meaning what?
Pretend to be happy. Put on a smile. Go to the mirror and put on a smile. You laugh at yourself. But it's good.
You pretend to smile. The hormones go into your brain and actually makes you happy.
Rick.
It's the Joker.
That's Eric's one.
Crazy.
Eric, you want to give your story or no? Give your story. Come on.
Another time.
Sounds like
Give
all
your
your.
story. Give your story.
I think already here.
Oh,
Dude, just give it. Go. It's good. It's good for you too. Come on, bro.
I can't reveal too many secrets. Just like pretend to smile.
We'll crack you at one point. We'll crack him at one point.
Spoiler shit.
There you go. I want to hear it, bro.
Go. Let's go. Let's
No,
go.
I'm not saying it.
Okay.
Alright, cause it's
Well, wait. Don't worry.
for another time.
So,
Eric Beaton Valley.
so dibur. Ari, what's dibur? Speech awakens that. We said. That's the difference between man and animal. Speech can bring that. That an animal doesn't have. It can't have awareness. It only acts based on rash decision. It only acts based on temptation. Man is supposed to go above that. It's a beautiful Torah. Especially Rabbeinu's Torah, which is the entire idea of breaking yourself to bring down the spiritual aspect. It's a different Torah. That's why Rabbeinu's Torah is very hard. Not a lot of people can get it. And I say that in front of the camera, not because I don't care. The Torah of Rabbeinu is very hard to really grasp because it's hard to work on yourself and it's hard to be truthful with yourself.
But because
Hard to accept to work on yourself.
Of course.
because that's why we're here, to fix our midot. So it's like the hardest thing. To
Totally.
do.
It's against our nature completely.
Of course.
That's why you see so many people against Rabbeinu and things like this, because when there's emet, there has to be the opposite. But what's emet lamito, the real truth? It's Rabbeinu, what he brought down to the world. The tzaddik that's there to fight for each and every Jew to come closer to Hashem.
I saw this video on Instagram. It was like a Muzan was like saying, sorry, you could have my back. Muzan was saying how Muzan was saying that like he was like in the camera and he was getting like kind of pissed. He was like not pissed, but he was really passionate about what he was saying. If you pray and you're not connected to any rabbi, he was like, then where do you think your tefillah is going? He's like, you actually think it's getting answered? No, it's going in the sky. It's going somewhere. But do you think with all the rebs and the menachim and the angels and the this and the that, it's like if the chances of getting answered is almost impossible. So he says you have to connect it to tzaddik, and when you connect it to tzaddik, he says it's like a cab driver, right? When you go hop into a taxi, he knows the place almost like in and out. He knows LA, like you go to cab, he knows when you go to New York, the Uber driver knows that like it's everything, right? So it says the tzaddik, right? Uber driver, and it says the tzaddik literally knows. Literally knows.
Jeff, you're insane, dude.
No, I said like the tzaddik knows his shamayim is literally ways. That's shamayim is sick.
So
It's great. This inyan is about gava though. We talked about lesson 10, right? The fact that you think you know how to pray is a sign of gava.
Yeah, no, that's my favorite. Is that in lesson 10?
Yeah, lesson 10.
Maybe my yearbook.
What's Avi Melech? Avi comes from the word Ava, to desire. Melech, to rule. He desired to rule. He thought he could pray. But what did Hashem tell Avi Melech? Return Sarah, who he had kidnapped, back to Abraham. Who's the tzaddik? Who's the Navi? Return the wife. Who's the wife? It's the aspect of prayer. The woman represents prayer. Man represents limud. Return prayer back to who? The tzaddik. Abraham. What's he teaching? When you understand that you yourself don't know how to pray, but you attach yourself to the tzaddikim in your tefillah, maybe you will get answered if you don't attach yourself to the tzaddik. But it may not be the answer you want. When you're attached to the tzaddik, you will know for certain that the answer you want the answer that you need will be given to you.
That's what I was always thinking, whenever you pray for something, people say how do you know it's good, right? So I guess if you say from Matanat Chinam, while binding yourself to tzaddik, then it's automatically good.
If you're emet with yourself, it's automatically good.
What do you mean emet with yourself? Oh.
Meaning if you're truthful with God, that you really want what's best for you, then you'll get what's best for you.
Yeah, but I feel like
it's very tough.
Hard. Yeah.
You have certain people in mind, expectations.
No, it's for example, say money, right? We don't want money. Most of us want money to have a nice life, whatever.
For sure.
Rarely, I feel like it's very hard to think about we want money just to only give to that guy and buy Jewish books and live in a shed at some point.
Because if you really did want it for that, you wouldn't want a lot of money. You'd only want enough for tzedakah and for the shed. And for your bookcase. That's the emet. The hard part, to be truthfully emet, is to go in Bodedut and tell Hashem, I don't have the level to have a lot of riches. Because Rabbeinu says, we were studying this last time in Sichat Chaverim, riches and kedusha are very hard to put together. In fact, almost impossible. Very hard. So know, truthfully, that if you want to be a rich, wealthy businessman, this, that, you can try. But to be true ish kasher, upright person.
To be a very simple person with a lot of money. More money comes a lot more.
They're counterintuitive. It's
not impossible. You could pray for it.
Exactly. But to be really, meaning the fact that we already have those desires for money, and we're praying that we can attain that level of having a lot of money and this and that, it shows we're not at that level yet because we're asking for a lot of money in the first place.
It depends what you do with your money though, because you can't say that 100%. People that, let's say someone that's born into money, what do you want him to just reject the money?
The truth is,
Sishat did.
with the Aji?
Yeah, Sishat rejected all the money. So there's the brothers, all the brothers. You have Noman Malchajinsk, you have Reb Zusha. These are the founders of Hasidus. They're the second or third generation after the Best, after the Magen
Soon Samadi, right?
And so you had Reb Zusha, you had the Noman Melech, then they had, I think, the older third brother. And Noman Melech got the estate. And then the other brother got the assets, some other assets, and then the Reb Zusha got all the debts that are owed to the family. Didn't collect any of it. He's
so much good you can do.
They're no, you're not wrong. But he just
But if you're a real tzaddik, you understand how much money you can do.
The rabbi gets
Harm's okay, but
that's
if you know the harm, then you can also do the good with it, no?
You can.
At that level, I understand what you're saying at our level, of course. So you're going to spend it on certain stuff.
For sure, at that level, they know what to do with money.
Stuck up.
Yeah, crew.
Rabbeinu distributes. The truth is, Rabbeinu said, I need all the money in the world. And Rabbeinu said, I distribute to each and every person.
But the Rebbe did. I'm pretty sure he had millions of just those dollar bills that he was giving out.
But
he viewed himself as a vessel for tzedakah. It's different coming from the Rebbe.
It's a massive rectification on money for sure.
What you guys say, bringing Jews together, believe in Hashem, they know if you go get that dollar from
he's doing tikkun.
For sure.
It's a different type of
Hashem is helping you.
You should follow the Instagram page. They show him giving dollars and stories. It's a really good Instagram.
The humans of Judaism.
I don't know what it's called,
but this thing down on money, it's very complicated. To be truthful, to really be honest with yourself, if you have a lot of money,
living in LA is a problem.
Good luck. Oh, it's all sheker.
Bro, the whole place is a.
To be here tonight, all studying the teaching of Rabbeinu, is the biggest chidush of all time. no one realizes it. I don't even realize it myself. To be here, studying the works of this tzaddik, the tzaddik Yesod Olam, Rabbi Nachman, in Los Angeles, probably I think one of the most impure places in the world, by far. Yeah, I don't think there's something worse.
We're talking top.
No, this is worse.
This or Vegas?
Vegas
might take the biggest one.
This or Vegas?
You ever walk in Vegas for 10 minutes?
That depends where in Vegas. Look at the Bilbul here. The Bilbul, everything. People don't know who they are.
You know why I think this place is more sick than Vegas? Because people know Vegas are sick. Like the going, even the going who are sick themselves, they think it's Vegas.
Wow.
Or the sick,
Sin City.
no one thinks of LA as sick, so like
Disguised.
exactly.
That's it. It's Amalek.
Yeah.
It's Tov V'Amorah.
It's a crazy posting everyone.
What'd you say, Jeff?
Florida's a very sick place.
No, but Amalek. What's Amalek? The entire Inyan of Amalek is to disguise itself with Kedusha.
We're literally LA, bro.
It's LA.
So,
So to be here tonight, studying the books of Rabbeinu, and to study Rabbi Natan, and to study the work of the Tzaddik, are beyond a miracle. You can't imagine.
Bezat Hashem will all end up in Israel. So
Amen. Bezat Hashem.
before we could do a food trip to Vegas and
When we get in the bus,
Let's do a tikkun in Vegas.
when we get in the bus,
we take the Nanach.
Bezat Hashem very soon.
Vegas. What an idea.
Bro, when you get this bus,
We might bring
on a
Mashiach,
road
dude.
trip.
We might bring-
We'll do it.
I think we would bring Mashiach.
Literally in Vegas.
Looking at bus listings right now. Okay.
So
We
this
do it every time, though. We never get it.
Yeah, bro, like 100K.
so this Inyan
You
of
want to buy a bus?
money L'Shem Shamayim is very
Why
difficult.
don't you just buy this guy's bus?
No way.
That's his bus.
So where are we at?
That's
Big
yeah,
Ham.
there's no place.
That.
וזה עיקר הגאולה, כי גלות מצרים היה על פגם הברית, שהוא פגם הדת. The essence of the redemption comes whenever you bring back the דת, which was then in exile. כי גם היין של 4 כוסות הוא תיקון הדת, שהוא בחינת תיקון הברית. And the 4 cups of wine that we have on Pesach, ליל הסדר, represent the rectification of the Brit.
It's great news.
So two big notes. And take this home because it's very...
Don't take that home.
Drink.
That was pulling.
That's porn, bro.
Is it not the same for the
What do you-
Maybe. Let's put it in. Put it in there. Why not? Are you kidding me?
Jeff, throw it in there, man.
No, it's true. It's true. That's what he writes here. Tikkun Abrit. Taking in the cup of wine, the 4 cups of wine, L'Shem Shamayim. If you do it really with the intention that you're rectifying Brit, even if you're not at the level yet.
Please tell me it can be grape juice too, because 4 cups of wine would die.
Why?
I think, screw it, bro. We gotta go.
Wine, bro. Not for the girl.
No.
Mix that, right?
What?
Bro,
Can you mix?
Can I mix?
The truth is...
Like, I'm not saying according to law. I know, like,
Oh, you're saying on Seder?
Yeah, that's good.
no, I'm saying like you're saying according to law, you can't use grape juice.
No, I'm not saying according... better to mix. Better to mix. But I'm saying better to have it purely wine. In the Sinyan that you keep it pure. It's... The
You
alcohol...
find a good wine, bro.
it's a pure seed.
It
The
widens
wine
it
is
out.
pure seed for a pure mind. It's a Zerah
What's
Kedusha,
that?
as opposed to like what is it, less than 9? It talks about the sweet waters and the
You get
bitter
wrecked,
waters
bro.
and the sweet
You
waters.
get wrecked, and actually, and
Listen,
you
nine
know,
days
You
it's
can
good.
maintain
So
sweet
you water
waters
all
for your
night.
bones. If
Other 3 cups of
You
wine.
fight
You have to go
the
first
entire
through like the
year
Tikkun HaKlali before the Tikkun
yes.
HaPrati. Like you have to first rectify the main picture before like this. Is that what it is or no?
Maybe along those lines, I don't recall. I don't
I don't know.
I understand now.
It is.
Super. My third drink.
It's like you were saying, it has to be pure.
Yeah. As long as you admit to yourself that you're not pure, because who truly is drinking the 4 cups totally Shem Shamayim? I mean, you can be. It's not. To be honest, to be pashut is the way to do it. Simple. Say Hashem. Honestly, you think I'm down for 4 cups? No way. But tonight I'm drinking it. You know why? Because it's gonna help me attain the Brit. It's gonna help me get closer to you. Yeah, for you.
You're
It's
gonna
gonna-
with my whole family, bro. You trust me, you're gonna want all 4 cups.
Is it the only thing it's
Random lawful question.
symbolizes? Like
What?
the wine? Is
Eric
there anything else it
loves the 4
symbolizes?
cups.
What the Brit?
No,
Drinks
the
all
wine.
4.
What about
Is
it?
like the only thing it symbolizes?
The wine symbolizes more, but the inyan here is that on Pesach the wine represents the Kedusha of the Brit.
You're right, random lawful question for the meaning. I thought, to be honest, it doesn't really make sense to like mean like this, like, because who the heck would king
So, like,
like
lean back, you know?
Right, so I think it's
Do you usually do
correct me
this?
if I'm wrong. I think you're supposed to put your legs like on a chair or something and like literally like
That's like back in the day.
chilling. Exactly.
Wow.
But exactly.
Yeah, another chair is always beneficial. So like this, and like a pillow. I was learning in Shofar talking, but you can't do this. You can't put your left hand on your face because it signifies like sadness, like going like this.
Oh wow.
Like anger. So you're not allowed to do that.
I think a king's chair
You have
has
to actually-
handles things. It just has to be like, you
If
know,
On
you
a
have another
chair.
chair, you
But
go
that
like
was cool.
this.
Like they used to
Oh, wow,
like,
okay.
like those videos with Caesar.
You can't do
like
this.
and they're fanning him.
It's gotta be left.
The Gemara, the Shulchan Aruch talks about how, I don't know the word in Hebrew, but it can't be like you're looking like face up, like
That's a
if
good
you're
one.
relaxing.
Wow.
And if you're lefty, then most poskim say you should still lean to the left, not to
Wow.
the right.
But if you lean to the right and you're left, you're gonna die.
Yeah, that's why. Because if you go like this, the whatever, the tube's up here.
YouTube.
You got it.
So yeah.
I think it's left to check.
So what do we do?
I knew
Well,
you
it's
like
great, dude. I was hungry.
it's
Just some doctor's
I
time.
knew you like that.
And the final piece, בפסח צועקים בתפילה. On Pesach we scream in tefillah, specifically Pesach. Because Pesach is מסוגל לתיקון הברית. It's very, very strong for repairing the Brit. Pesach, the voice has a very strong power. So no few things getting out of here. The voice, to expel it loudly, repairs the Brit. But only if you keep your mind away from chametz, which is what? Philosophies.
So if you're generating a thunder, if you're screaming tefillah on Pesach, your thunder is able to now expel a chametz only if you're ready to expel a chametz. If you're not coming prepared.
Even if you're not ready, let's be real, if you do it with simplicity and you tell Hashem, I want to be ready, then yes. But if you're still in your way of believing that everything is logical and there's so much, everything is within nature and stuff like that, that God, it doesn't.
What is ready you think mean? Like, cause I try, I want the greatest. I try to stay on a little bit, try to learn a little Pesach for this, try to get in the mood, in the mode.
Then that's it.
Is that just
Of course it
simple?
is.
You do like stick with the.
Simplicity is like, it's hibodelut, sincerity, truth. It's faith, sincerity, and emet. It's like, if you're really emet with yourself, you're gonna do hibodelut because you know you can't go anywhere without asking God, without interacting with God and being there. So Rabbeinu says, but like, to be truly ish kasher, upright, simple, pashut, you have to do hibodelut. And it's definitely a method to do it. It has to come to the point where everyone puts time every single day to at least have a minute. Truthfully, it's an hour. It's an hour a day, and I'm not going to hide it. Rabbeinu writes at least an hour a day. But start with a minute because you never get started. But a minute has to be done every day, or else you're not going anywhere.
Can't you, two things, remember right? Can't you scream in your head too? Wasn't that like a thing?
That's a different type of thing. It's a loud, still voice.
Can
It's
you
like,
consider prayer
because
when
if
you
you-
do it or not?
no, you have an obligation to pray 3 times. But the highest level of prayer is
Like you said, an hour, so you can't count like to shop.
Sometimes Rabbeinu even said to a student, an hour in the day, an hour at night. A lot of people take that in yan.
Oh boy.
But start with a minute, not 2 hours. Start with a minute. And the problem is, I say this 1,000 times, and it's not me who said it. Rabbeinu says you start small, step by step. And you know what the problem is? No one thinks it's worth anything, so they never start. And you guys start with 5 minutes, and it never works out because 5 minutes is too
It's
much.
hard. It's like saying in your head, I go for 5 minutes and some point get to 2 hours. Like it's a crazy concept.
No, but start with 1 minute. Tomorrow, if you want to do a minute 10 seconds, then do a minute 10 seconds.
But
Walk.
I
Walk.
feel like listen, I'll tell you for instance, like I do that, I'll say quick, I'm doing it for a minute. And then in the minute, I'm like, wow, I could really go on for like
Yes.
But
Doesn't
then
matter,
And then the
stop.
next day, you're like, bro, am I really down to do this for 40 minutes again?
No, then don't do that. This is the
That's
problem.
the answer doing the first
Exactly.
time. Once you start going longer.
But like,
That's
I
the
feel like
answer.
a minute's not enough. But like, that's...
No, it's enough. When you don't start, it's enough. After doing a minute for a year, after doing a minute for a month, it's time to move on.
Even a month is like too long,
Dude, a minute for a month each day?
It's too long.
What do you mean it's too long? What do you,
I've been trying to do 15, but like.
I'm saying the month is too long for...
it depends for a person.
True.
Depends per person.
Maybe
Dude,
good for
Some people can, some people, their mind is so not clear. You know how hard it is for them to do it, Rabbeinu says when the Mashiach is going to come, everyone's mind's going to be literally a jungle yard. It's going to be a jungle gym. I don't even know how to explain it.
Like in a
Every-
bad way?
Yeah. There's going to be so much chaos. What's the entire Inyan of Gog and Magog, Rabbeinu says? It's a war in the mind. You see today, people don't know who they are. There's so much confusion about whether what gender a person is. Just to get.
Do you think it can get worse?
Of course, it's gonna get worse.
Because what?
If you don't do what to do, so.
Even like I don't even want to say it. I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna say it.
The truth is though, with Rabbeinu,
I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it.
with Rabbeinu, the more Ari, the worse it gets, the stronger Rabbeinu gets.
Huh?
The worse it gets, the stronger Rabbeinu gets.
Yeah, this is like really bad.
No, but Ha'esh Shadi,
Yeah.
Tukada Biat HaMashiach, meaning it's not getting smaller, it's only getting bigger. The Kedusha is getting stronger. So have the faith that, truthfully, yes, it's getting worse because they have nothing there.
You need a purge.
But Rabbeinu is doing a lot of work. Hashem still has a lot of mercy, you know?
Yeah.
The Ikar is to understand that Hitbodedut it's the most necessary component of a Jew. You cannot be a true Jew without Hitbodedut. You can't. And it's not me who says that, it's Rabbeinu who says that. It's gonna click in at one point.
You know what's crazy? You know how crazy factual it is? Like, I can't do it. Like, nowadays, it's insane. But, like, the best I felt, probably this year, in a long time, it's like anyone did that 1 hour pouring night. Bro, I finished. First of all, it's like I did Chatzot that, you know, he said it was important, so I did that or whatever. I finished, bro, first of all, I'm exhausted, but I just felt great. Something about it, bro, I'm like, good job. Like, I was just like,
Did you have me in mind?
bro, I
I think the best night, like a night, like I've spoken to you guys, a few people about this, like a night that changed my life in Israel from a time that was like really, really bad and hard and like sad and down or whatever, to like literally change my life. It made my last month and a half in Israel what it was, what like I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for one night of people to do that. Like it was just like 3 o'clock in the morning and just like I don't know what happened. It was just crazy.
Wow. There's that one Hitbodedut that unlocks everything.
I thought. No, sorry.
No, shoot.
I was talking to a family friend, and he used to like this guy. I'm sure I told you. This guy was like, I'm telling you, when you see him out here, he was partying until his late 20s. Man, this guy wasn't partying like I want to say buy lung promoters for clubs to get in. I'm talking about partying on One Oak with the craziest bottles in the world, like $100,000 bottles, and the craziest drugs in the world, and the craziest girls and everything. Like a real Wolf of Wall Street dude. And it was him and his buddy, and one night on his birthday, instead of going to party, he's like, I'm not going, like I'm not feeling it. No, he went on the beach and he said he didn't want to do it. He spoke to God for 2 hours. And fast forward, like he started getting more religious and met this rabbi, like those special rabbis who look at you and he's like, you weren't supposed to get married at all. He's like, married a Jewish, he's religious. I was like, you weren't supposed to get married. Something you did on one night changed your life. Your complete, like everything. He's like, I know what I did. It was my brother dude for 2 hours on my birthday. It was sick when you turned around and heard that. I was like, that's sick. And the coolest thing in the world.
Himala Gdola Me'od. Rabbeinu said it's the most elevated level.
That one act, like I said, like one act. It's like 2 hours. You can take that one act and like it changes the course of
everything.
It is crazy that you can change your life. It's like, when you think about it, you're supposed to have like a set course.
Hitbodedut hu ma'ala elona ugdola min hakol. Hitbodedut is the highest. It's ma'ala elona. It's a what?
It changes mazal.
For sure changes mazal. It can change everything with one hitbodedut. I'll tell you something a little bit about how I feel. 1 second. But what did he say? Hitbodedut hu ma'ala elona. It's a very supernal level. It's a very high level. Ugdola min hakol. It's greater than everything. Simple. Very simple. And which lesson is it connected to? Mitzvah gedola yod b'simchat. The both Gdolas are coming to teach us something that Hitbodedut and Simcha are directly connected.
Idea, by the way?
What? Rabbeinu is the one who came up with it.
Of
course. No one seems to know, but Rabbeinu is everywhere, you know? It's a crazy.
It's a sick song, too.
Yeah.
Bro, you know the song Back to the Best, alright?
Yeah.
It's him too.
Really?
Yeah. Also,
All the
Yeah,
big
put
ones.
me on that song.
you know the NTSY get shirts on the road?
Yeah.
Well, love, it's him too. no,
It's really
He's the quote master. Promise.
Dude, we should
והעיקר לא לפחד כלל. והעיקר לא, you know, והעיקר לא.
Yeah, call that on every NTSY, Charlatan sings that.
Dude, I'm filing a lawsuit today. This is not allowed.
CC breasts of BRI.
Mexico Part 2.
You know,
We love them.
when you study a lot, right? And a lot of the time it gets overwhelming. Because it gets very hard to apply everything you study.
That's like the hardest thing. Like that's the most important thing. And it's like
Right?
to actually break it down practically.
I know what Rabbeinu says. You know what's the greatest wisdom of all? Throwing everything you know and acting with simplicity. And I find that Hibodedut is such a powerful way to get rid of everything you studied. Literally everything. Everything you know.
Everything, in a good way.
In a good way. And to come to God and say, Hashem. It's funny that everything I study feels like nothing works before you. Because here I am in a room with my Creator, the one who created heavens and the earth, and the only reason why I'm here. And I have no words to say to you. And no words of Torah can explain the feelings that I'm having. The reason why Hibodedut is so high is because it touches a level of the heart that nothing else can. The tefillah that you have every single day are put in words in a book. You don't create your own destiny with it. You can. And that's the point that the Chachamim, the level of the Chachamim were so high that they were able to incorporate everything within the word of tefillah. But they don't alleviate your heart. You can't describe your passion, your feelings, your sensations, all your problems and everything without Hibodedut. And I tend to find that people, they always say, but we have Amidah, we have Shacharit. People, mitnagdim, people who are against Brit or against like this inyan of Hibodedut, people that are all about Hibonanut analysis and not about Hibodedut, they always say, nah, there's Shmona Esrei to do that, there's Shema Kolenu. And you know what it is? It's absolute nonsense.
I don't even think you're supposed to pause that long halachically. Like,
Really?
you're doing Shema Kolenu, like, you know that pause, there's a place to it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure you go over a certain amount of time, like, it's.
What's the
Like, then it becomes like a.
Really?
What's the
Like
word?
Safek?
A hefsek?
Hefsek.
Is that the word?
Safek,
That's like,
Hefsek.
the point is, like, if you're talking about that, then it's a problem in the first
This
place.
is halacha. I do like 9-10 minutes.
Yeah, but I do long. I don't know what the time limit is. I think I'm like probably
Shitut.
borderline.
What's the time limit?
Simplicity.
And also, like, and then again, like, if you're going by this, like, you do what you can. Whatever you're feeling, you do.
You know, when you have that, Rabbeinu says, whenever you have a moment to do something, take it. There's no, you know, like, honestly, what did it say? What did the Katzker say?
I don't think it could be bad.
Yeah, it can be bad.
I don't
Especially
see
when you're
a way
truthful.
You could relate like a davening of Shema Kolenu with extra Emunah and enthusiasm, like which extends the time into something like
You
against
can say-
halacha. Like,
Do you know the
it's
halacha
like
for
that.
certain Kalev? Do you know the halacha? Where it is or something?
I've heard this before. That you
Like, it's a-
Don't search it up.
Yeah.
My trick is don't search it up. Don't search it up. I was gonna tell you don't search it.
I remember saying, like,
It might be.
I don't know, it was a lie. They misprinted it.
we'll leave that in the doubt section of the
Don't try to find it.
I think it's
Because I spent a long time with Shema Kolenu. Was like, we get it.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's.
Maybe on like
it's
Yom
different,
Kippur, I daven takes me
Don't
extra
ask
15
questions you don't
minutes.
want to answer.
What's up,
I
yeah?
think it's
Culture.
Don't ask questions you don't want to
Culture,
answer.
Exactly. What's up, Ari?
No, I think it's because you don't, they don't, I don't know, whatever it is. It's because you might miss Nagdisha. And it says like, if you keep doing it, and it's like, if you're gonna miss it every single time, it says that you have to, I think like.
Yeah, I miss it every time.
Yeah, but then I asked someone, he's like, no, don't worry about
Kitul
it.
Shulchan. I was studying Chok Breslev, right? Like inside it, there's a Kitul Shulchan Aruch. In it said, don't be afraid to lengthen your tefillah. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, because I know, like, especially, actually, not the place that I daven in Shachrit, for sure, I know, like, there's 3 minutes from that
Oh, yeah.
I'm
No
not
chance.
making Nagdisha, like,
I'm with you.
no chance, like, no.
Totally.
Yeah.
Slowly.
I go for longer.
Dude, 8:15, like, is.
No, 15 is they do
It's
5
like-
they do 5 minutes. It's like,
Literally, it takes 5 seconds.
Yeah.
the-
Go slowly, on it, you know?
It's good.
Slowly start to chip away at the Amidah. The Amidah is a process, you know? It's like,
Honestly, there hasn't, like, you know what sucks? It's sometimes, like, I'll rush myself because I know that. And, like, most shows I go to, like, most shows I've been to, like, and I feel like I can remember where I've actually been, like, into my Shemona Esrei, like, knowing what I'm saying, trying. I've rarely made it to Nagi Shah if I actually like gave it my all during Shmakalin.
Totally.
That's why I hate being Chazan. That's
Yeah,
even worse.
exactly.
No, bro.
Exactly.
I'll be
If you're
Chazan all
Chazan,
the time.
you have to rush it.
No, I'll just
That's the thing. If you're the 10th also, Tirchad the Tibura, that's the most annoying thing.
yeah.
When you're the 10th person,
That's
you have to
okay.
speed up your
That's
Amidah
okay.
because
That's
you can't
okay.
bother the
Right.
Kahal.
But people started
That's
that
what I'm
way.
saying. You can't bother the Kahal.
Really?
You have to speed
Yeah,
it
of
up.
course,
Once it comes to like that kind of
but
stuff,
people,
like you have no
people answer before though. Like they start like
Oh,
they
I
always start before.
If they start with 9 men, then take as long as you want.
I know they always do it without me.
Yeah.
So at that point, good.
The guys, those two things. The guys that like
They
give
start
halacha, they give two off after. One of my family friends, he's like, Mamash, like guys that shut the mark himself. Like he knows like everything. And he was saying, he's like, every day I come here, I've been coming for years. You guys made like he said the modern day people made up this halacha that with 6 people you're allowed to start Shemona Esrei. He's like that's straight cap. He's like I don't know where
Is
it
it
says.
really?
No, it's
It's
six. I think it's 6 to start Shemona Esrei, but to start Shemona Esrei, Gal Yisrael, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
I
But
thought it
not 6
was-
to
I
start
thought it
Chazan.
Yeah.
Bro, that was because I shot. You can start with 6.
Doesn't make
Also,
sense.
it
doesn't make sense.
People are answering on
I know. I
also
never
thought it
said
was
that,
I
bro.
also
What
thought
do
it
you
was
mean?
that.
I've done that before based on the.
No, I mean, yeah, that's what that is, right?
Where I've heard that thing that you said that you can't bother the congregation is in relation to when people do Kohanim and a couple weeks ago at Shul, also the AC wasn't working right. It was like Ben Miles Shabbat Chatan, it was packed. People couldn't stand up. There's no room. And the guy who does Musa decides I'm gonna sing and bro, it took a good 3 to 4 minutes. People are under their talit, they can't breathe. And after I was like, that's full, because I remember learning it a couple of days before, it's fully against halacha, he's not allowed to do that.
You know what's that about Sali? There was once a Chazan who was singing at Dishach and he was taking fat. Baba Sali said that. That makes sense, bro. It said that. This is not after because he probably saw that also the guy Chazan was doing it for his own kavod. He's like, there's no way.
Eric, you love that one.
He's like, there's no way this is going on.
Are you allowed to, ever since basically, it's crazy. It's crazy. I always look back at this. Before I went to Israel, in my last year, I've always, Ruchniut, always was in the back of my mind, but, not nearly as much, right? So, after I would daven at Shuvah the whole 12th grade, because I wasn't in school. I would daven at Shuvah and then go to SMC. And I would tell myself, okay, after every davening, I get those daily halacha emails, and I'm gonna read it, and they're all based off of.
Sounds like a tow truck.
Oh no way, dude! My car's parked in there.
Oh, it's a fire truck.
They scared me.
Yo, that scared the crap out of me. You see a man in an orange beard pulling a tow truck away?
Is there a tow truck, Eric?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
There's definitely a tow truck. They're not towing you.
No,
It's not a motorcycle.
Jacob, you're in there, right?
Yeah. They're not. They can't fit me. It's okay. Little Torah, bro. I was in the middle of saying
Oh,
something.
you have Emunah. I like it.
Dude, no, that guy wanted to get towed. That guy's motorcycle was broken. Whatever. Who cares? So basically, I would get the emails, right? That was a great call out, man. My heart dropped.
Crazy. How'd you know that? I didn't know that sounds
So I would get the daily halacha emails, and I always remembered that it was all based off of Rav Daily Halacha.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them said that during the repetition, you shouldn't or you're not allowed to sit. Is that a fact? I don't remember it exactly.
I don't know. I just have the custom not to sit on.
Yeah, same.
the entire.
Until I don't know, or you should.
Yeah. I never really
finished.
sat.
After you finish, they do not Disha and they just.
You're supposed
I have no idea.
I think the strict love is what you take 3 steps back, then you wait till they Kedusha, and then you take 3 steps forward.
No, but he's saying
No,
even,
after
like
that.
in the
So
Chazara
I'm saying
itself.
actually even after
Chazar
Like-
Kasha.
Not to move or not to sit?
No, actually, that's
Yes,
sit
yes,
down, no?
I sit down.
Yeah, yeah.
watch
I don't
my-
know.
I know a lot of people sit.
Maybe it's a Sfaradi Ashkenazi thing. I don't know.
I know, I remember in Yavne, everyone used to sit down, it was like 2 people guys would stand
My
up.
grandpa sits down, but he's considered so.
Your grandpa sits down, your grandpa stands up for the whole thing.
He stands the whole thing.
I'm saying like when he's not with Yavna, I've seen him daven outside
Your
Yavna.
grandfather, I always remember this.
Like the
He made fun of us. He's He's like, I'm way older than you guys, and if I can stand over for you guys can stand up for
He
the
says
That's
He's
not fair. Like, he
Yeah.
stands the whole day. That guy can stand from morning till nighttime and be fine.
But it's so
Roasting.
true. It's so true, bro. We're like 11, 12 years old. You don't want to stand for a broad strong bar or whatever. I'm standing up. He's like, I'm way older than you guys. Stand up for.
You guys want to do something?
Yeah, I'm kind of down.
Let's do this.
Dude, I fully thought I was gonna get 10.
Bro, when there was
Oh,
like
you
a
are-
truck there.
Yeah, my car's in the red, but not next to the motorcycle.
It's like dark out and the red.
Well,
It's
like,
like in the
When
red.
he gets stuff.
Well, like,
Look at this in
I'm saying, like, who the hell would call a tow truck on me? No one.
What about the Harleys, dude?
The ops, bro.
The
They're
ops.
trying to get me to stop.
There was also a fire truck. That was like,
Yeah, I fully thought like right there, like something's going on, bro.
It's crazy.
Look at this.
There's his house 3.
Good ears, Eric. Good
I
ears.
have a thing for tow trucks.
We're about to get
Cops.
we're about to get deep with the matzah and chametz. This is actually one of my favorite chidushim that Rabbeinu brings from the Zohar in lesson 5. The difference between chametz and matzah. Look at this. עיקר החילוק בין חמץ למצה הוא החילוק וההבדל שבין חטא לה'. The difference between chametz and matzah is one letter. The chet and the he, right?
Oh, it's just so fire. This is so fire.
So look where it goes.
Oh, I love this.
Meaning you have the mem and the tzadik, which are the both same letters in chametz and matzah. The only difference is chametz has a chet and the he is in matzah.
Comments on the cat.
Chametz has a chet and the matzah is had the he at the end. But look at the difference. Look where he goes.
I'm gonna need this recording for all of
Wait,
us.
comments. They both have sets, no?
No,
What's up?
chametz,
Oh,
chet,
matzah.
matzah, right?
Yeah.
So what is it? שזה בחינת עיקר החילוק שבין הסטרא אחרא לבין הקדושה. This is the difference between the evil side and the holy side. היינו כי עיקר אחיזת היצר הרע והסטרא אחרא הוא מכפירות וגם אמונה. Where does the essence of the יצר come from? From rejecting faith and from heresy. It's a lack of faith, it's philosophy, it's all this stuff that we were talking about. We were talking about earlier about the idea of simple faith. ובכל הכפירות הם מחמת החוכמות, and all כפירות, heresy, comes from the aspect of חוכמות, wisdoms, foreign wisdoms. מחמת שנדמה לאדם שכבר הוא חכם וראוי לו להבין כל הדברים ושיתרוצו לו כל הקושות שקשים לו על השם יתברך. This is the crazy thing. And understand this very well because it's extremely important. He's explaining a very big idea here. Why does the person come to heresy, which is chokhmot and all this stuff? Because a man thinks that he already has wisdom and that he already knows things and he has answers to all the questions of God. You know when Moshe Rabbeinu goes up on Har Sinai? He goes up to the Marom, he goes up to the heights. And what happened? He comes before God and he sees what in the future? He sees Rabbi Akiva, right?
Who does this? Sorry.
Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was about to give the Torah 40 days before, right? He's 40 days up there. It says in the 40 days, there's a story where he sees the soul of Rabbi Akiva. And where does he go? Hashem brings Moshe Rabbeinu into the shiur of Rabbi Akiva. And what's Rabbi Akiva doing? He's doing a lesson on the sod of the crowns of the Torah. Rabbi Akiva explained the sod of the crowns on the letters of each. Moshe Rabbeinu said, what am I learning? I don't understand it. And he said, you should give the Torah to him, not to me. Hashem said, no, it's going to you. And when Moshe Rabbeinu saw the death of Rabbi Akiva, he said, Zot Torah ve'zo schara. This is the Torah and this is its reward. Hashem said, shtok, be quiet. That's Emunah.
I can't, like, you can't, like, Moshe, basically, like, Rabbi Akiva was able to learn that much because he had the Torah already, and Moshe didn't have the Torah, so how can you say, like, don't give?
Because he saw Rabbi Akiva's level.
That's also just like classic Moshe Rabbeinu being the most humble guy in the world.
But he truly believed it. He's like,
I know,
this guy is like...
not like in a fake way.
For sure, for
like,
sure.
He just is the most humble person ever.
Totally.
So.
And we're studying a big sod about humility. You know what real humility is? And Ari and I were talking about it on Shabbat with Shlomo Miller. You know what he's saying? And Rabbeinu says this. Rabbeinu writes it in Sichat Chaverim. True humility is not keeping your head down to the ground. It's what? It's knowing your value, but vis-a-vis God, like before God, you understand how little you are. That's how Moshe Rabbeinu.
It's even harder than to completely throwing yourself away.
Yeah.
I feel like because once you
It's the same
value-
thing though, no?
I feel like
No,
once
you get to like you get to like that he's saying, like you get to like a leadership aspect, right?
exactly because you have
Like,
to value yourself. You're like, oh, I know this, and then from that you have to compare yourself.
Ooh.
to
It's hard. You're saying it's hard to accept all the... You know what Rabbeinu says? Rabbeinu said, all the leadership I receive and all the kavod I receive.
Of course, though.
He said, I'm forced to receive by God. But he said, I don't even want it.
Still there, so.
He said, all the honor I receive is way below the honor I deserve, meaning for the kavod, for the Torah that I have. But he said, even that kavod I don't want whatsoever.
Who says?
He said, I'm forced to accept that kavod. Amen. Rabbi Nachman says, I'm forced to accept the kavod people give me. Because that was God's will, but he didn't want it whatsoever. We see here a very big thing. Humility is not necessarily just saying, oh yeah, I'm not. When someone says, wow, you had a beautiful reading of the Torah. No. That's not humility. That's fake humility.
Thank you.
You say thank you. I know it's very good, but Hashem gave me a gift. He gave you a gift. And
Once you realize it came from Hashem, then you're good to go. We have to understand.
Exactly.
You do the Shem Shemayim.
Right.
Totally. It has to be the Shem Shemayim. You know yourself when you're humble or not. Moshe Rabbeinu, you know what the hardest part for him was? Was explaining his own humility to the Jewish people. You know what the Biur Likutim writes? Rabbi Avram ben Nachman from Koch Ve'or. He writes that it was so hard for Moshe Rabbeinu to explain his own humility to somewhere else because he was afraid of getting kavod, a little honor from the fact that he was explaining his own humility to the Bnei Israel. That was Moshe's job. Every week, what would they do? They would explain the Torah. They were reading the Torah. What? It was his job to tell Bnei Israel about his own humility that writes in the Torah. Hashem speaks to Moshe. And the man Moshe was most humble than all man. Moshe was telling them that to them. Imagine the level of humility you have to tell them your own humility. And he didn't. It said Moshe's humility was so high. The fact that it wrote in the Torah by God, Moshe was the most humble man. He didn't even get humble from that, from God, from the King of all kings. It's the same thing with all the tzaddikim, Rabbeinu, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Their humility, when they speak praises of themselves, do you think they're speaking praises of themselves for themselves? God forbid. At that point, it's just kfirut. It's heresy to think that. Their humility is so high that they don't even get any pride from the fact that they're speaking of their humility. It's a level that can't be imagined. That's a really real level of prophecy. But when you attach yourself to the tzaddik, you can attain a level that you get a taste of this. A taste, not even a taste. But according to your level, you can be truthful and still be humble, And that's the goal. But what did he say here? Why does a person get to heresy and kfirot? Because of chokhmot, wisdoms. And what is wisdoms? Wisdoms is the idea that man thinks he knows something. You think you know all the answers, and that was the idea of Moshe Rabbeinu, understanding that he knows nothing. Even Rabbeinu said, the greatness of God cannot be comprehended. We know about the level Rabbeinu reached. It was a level beyond our level. No one reached that level. So here we're talking about something that can't be described whatsoever. God is infinite. You can't describe it. And the more wisdom you have, the more you understand that you actually have nothing at all. Right? You have no wisdom whatsoever. And that's what he's saying here. So look what he says. So the fact that you think you have wisdoms, or you think that you understand everything, all the answers to the questions that God has, that you have on God, or al tzadiki emet, or on the tzadikin. And because of chokhmah, you fall very much. The only chokhmah that you should have is the chokhmah of the Torah. That's it. The chokhmah of the tzadikim. That's it. The other chokhmot are not chokhmot you should have. And what did he say? The chokhmot that aren't holy make you fall very much to very low places that we can't even imagine. As is brought in Likutei Moharan, Siman Ben Daled, which is all this idea of philosophy and stuff like that. What do we say? What's the real truth? What's the principle? Thing that we have to know? To throw away all our sechel, our intellect. Completely. And only rely on chokhmah. Meaning, it's using the Torah that you study and implementing it into things. That's not using chokhmah. That's using the chokhmah of the Torah. And what's chokhmah of the Torah? It's pashut, it's simple. Because you believe God said it. You're not going around saying the reason for this and this. The biggest problem is why do a lot of people do mitzvot? A lot of people decide to take upon themselves mitzvot because it makes sense.
And the rationale, once you go based on the rationale, it's game over.
It's finished. If you want to study according to the rationale of the sod, The secret of why we do it, or according to why Hashem does it according to the Torah, that's Emunah Pshuta, that's simple faith, because you believe the Torah is alive and you believe the Torah is real. So you're relying on the Torah, which you already have faith to believe in, to explain that mitzvah. But if you're explaining it rationally, according to logic, according to the nature of this world, why I should do this, why, for example, I should do Brit Milah, because it makes sense on the 8th day that the baby's developing some sort of, it's very dangerous for the foreskin might not be such a healthy thing, and the 8th day is the best day to do it because the baby's already attained its full health and all this stuff that we do it. That's heresy. It might not seem like it because it might seem like you're doing the mitzvah, but it's crazy,
I
no?
had a discussion
Go.
with one of our friends on Shabbat. Me and Mendy had a discussion with someone about how he got into a discussion as well with some of his friends about how, like, in Judaism and Hashem is like blind faith, what he called it, like, is that right, or should you have logic towards, like, your beliefs?
I already know exactly the characters in the story.
And I was telling him, like, do you understand two things? First of all, we know, like, as much as you think, like, okay, X is because of Y and Z applied to something in the Torah, like halacha, that's so not true. We tell ourselves this is the reason why, but like my rabbi was telling me the other day, the Gemara says, like, everything is a chok. Nothing is not, like, any reasoning we give to something is not real. Just like that. Any, like, oh, this is why we do this. No, it's not true. And if you believe that, then I don't know what to tell you.
Totally, dude. Totally, bro. You can't point to faith on something. We were talking about this. Faith cannot be pointed to. You cannot describe why you believe in God.
The second you point faith to something and you get into a conversation with an atheist or a scientist, he's gonna smoke you. He's literally gonna turn you to a charcoal. I'm not joking, but you base it on. Hashem revolves the all the solar system and it's beautiful, yeah. Yeah, I know it's beautiful, yeah, but I don't base my faith on that. Scientists are like, yeah, it's the third reasoning of this, and that. You're gonna be like, oh wait, but I actually believe on it. He's like, you on what? Yeah.
No, but I do think, even though, like, everything I just said, I fully agree with, and, like, I really, like, Hashgacha Pratis is, like, the biggest part of my life. At the same time, and I say this because, like, you know who Rabbi Wangland is, right? Who? Rabbi Wangland.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay, he's like a genius. Okay, he was fully not religious at all.
Are you serious?
Yeah, are you kidding?
No way. I didn't know.
Dude, yeah, 100%.
He's a full chassid.
And now he's a full chassid, whatever. And now, like, he does kirub, like, bro, he's a genius. He speaks at Harvard. He went to Harvard. He went to law school. Yeah, he's a genius. And now places pay him, colleges pay him to come speak. So he does use, like, a lot of statistics and stuff in terms of cube, and I think that could be very helpful to bring people in. Like I think, of course, like, if you're someone who doesn't believe, you're just gonna come believe. That's much harder.
For sure.
Okay, and then in his case, like, I think it really helps. Like, there's one thing he always gives is he goes, if you let's say there's like a stack of coins, right? They drop off the table. What are the odds that they pile on top of each other? 1 in a trillion. And then he said, okay, are you stupid? The odds of this earth being made in a bang, like these sickos say, is like a trillion times more than that number.
For sure.
So, like, he does it well, but I think us, Baruch Hashem, like, being raised in, like, houses with Ruchniut and Hashem, and, knowing that Hashem is real, whatever, and all that stuff, we don't necessarily need to rely on that.
Exactly. That's the thing.
Which is a benefit we have.
For the people that are very weak in true faith, they need statistics and they need logic. And even the truth is,
like, something to fall back on.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
He's like, yeah, I need these things to fall back on, but, like,
it's not real faith, because even your faith cannot be pointed to that. Meaning, it's only things to strengthen, right? It's finding God within nature, the beauty of nature. It's like finding God within. You look at a tree and you say, how can a seed or whatever it is, right, come out to something this big? And that's finding God in something that's natural, right? But that only that's only helping your faith, right? But you can't point
you,
exactly.
Like, the fact that, like, this is crazy. Like, the fact that a tree that comes from a seed gives off something that has a seed in it that if you replant will give you a whole nother tree.
It's crazy.
Is insane. But that's just something that's just amazing. Like,
right?
It's a revelation.
You know what?
It's finding God in her.
You know what I think it is? I think that we were talking about this with Shlomo. I think that every way is okay to come back to, like, whatever you can do, whatever you want. but there are different levels of
course,
it.
of course.
So that's my way of saying it. It's not wrong, like, because you can't say it's wrong, because at the end of the day, you're still coming closer to
Totally.
But it's just a different level.
For
If
sure.
you have 100% Emunah, just over Emunah, I feel like it's the best level. But then if you have to base your Emunah, that's okay.
But that will never last. You'll always constantly need to feed it.
But that's why it's on a lower level than just basing Emunah on Emunah.
For sure. Meaning Emunah, the only reason why that logic works, why that tree thing or whatever, that Big Bang statistic we were just talking about works, is because you actually have faith in the first place, which can be pointed to.
Right.
Meaning, the stronger your faith, the less of that you need. The only thing you'll need is your Yibodadut. Honestly, a person who trains himself to do Yibodadut an hour a day for 40 days, you know how Nathan says? Watch everything. Everything will be proven to you. Everything you ask for will be given. Watch. He says, test it. Test it yourself. 40 days. Do Yibodadut every single day for an hour. He says, everything you ask for, everything you want will be attained. Watch.
There's a story with the Rav Arush book, it's like a miracle book. And I just opened it randomly. There's a story.
Like Moshe's boy.
There's a story on that book where
Great.
basically I opened it and I read it. It was like this Bachor, like he was like 27 years old, and he wasn't able to get married until and then he went to Rav Arush. Rav Arush is like, you go every day for 2 weeks and you say thank you Hashem for not letting me get married for 30 minutes a day. You say, Hashem, thank you so much for not making me married, and then like for 2 weeks, okay. So he did it for 2 weeks and he got engaged after. Like it was the coolest thing. Because once you thank Hashem because he wants whatever wherever you are in life.
That's the Rav Zusha poop story.
The food story.
Explain. You wanna get the story?
These stories, I mean, like now that I think, you think these stories are just like the seed or Big Bang Theory example I just
No,
because like
because it's relying on faith.
No,
There's no
I'm saying,
logic
but I'm
there.
saying you using this story to be like, oh wow, I have faith now.
It strengthens faith, like we were talking about, right? The statistic thing. But this faith is much stronger because true stories of tzaddikim. What's the story of a tzaddik? He did a miracle, this, that. But a person with real logic won't believe in that.
Right.
You need the faith. Meaning, it's easy to come to a statistic. You can't argue with statistics, really.
Right.
But you can argue with the story of a tzaddik.
Yeah, me and Truman and Joseph were talking today about how, like, I don't know where it says it, but we were saying, like, okay, we heard this crazy, Joe was telling us this story about how, like, Rabbi Nachman was in, like, the wilderness with his like, followers. We're davening Mincha before Shabbat, and he said, like, who really wants to go to the Kotel right now? Like,
That was Ari HaKadosh.
oh, okay, right? And then he's like, okay, if you guys really want to go, like, we'll like, teleport right
Are
now.
you serious?
And then apparently, you know the story better, so if I'm making a mistake.
No, shoot. No.
So then, like, they were all down, and then they're like, oh, we need to ask our wives first. And then he said that if they didn't say that, like, if they said, okay, let's do it, like, Mashiach would have came. And then someone asked, like, okay, like, is this really possible? And the answer that Joseph said that, like, was given was that, like, you have to believe that, like, who knows if it actually would happen, but you have to believe that they were capable of doing it.
For sure.
Or something like that, right? I don't know, explain it in better words, but...
No.
It's a vinegar oil story. Remember your brother?
Yeah, it's a great story. It's a great story.
Meaning the rabbi said,
Rabbi's daughter.
go, shoot.
No, I don't know.
Go.
It's just
Oh my God.
this rabbi's daughter, like, whatever, they didn't have enough, like, oil or something, and then the rabbi's daughter was like, okay, what are we gonna do? And he used vinegar, and the vinegar doesn't burn, and the vinegar
Is that
burned
like
like
a
on
Alicia
a
story?
candle.
I think it's Rabbi
I just
Hanina
know the
Mendoza.
story of Alec.
Yeah,
I think so.
Moroccan rabbi, they know Alec also.
right.
I
swear.
Baba Sadi used it for gas.
You put the towel on Alec bottom.
As Rabbi said it. Simple
Alec
faith.
bottle is
You know?
cedar cyanide in a bottle.
I think a lot of it is just based on a lot. I think it comes through perspective change because I was also reading the Rav Zusha, one of his quotes was, if you realize that nature is just as big as a miracle as actual miracles, then
Wow.
then none of this is like an issue.
Yeah.
Like just like Jacoby was saying, like Ari was saying, if you realize what nature is, that itself is a miracle.
That requires faith, though.
Right. So,
You know?
but like it's just like the whole concept of go to nature and see and complicate. The point is, that's a miracle. It's all a miracle.
Totally.
Once you accept that everything just becomes a lot easier.
But right when you see that as a
The
miracle,
world doesn't
that's
make any
that's it.
sense.
Exactly.
Like try to
Exactly.
put logic.
Exactly.
Exactly. Don't cover up miracles. Rabbeinu says the Mashiach will come when Emunah is abundant in the world. Tavoi tashori morosh Amana. It says in Sichat Chaverim. Come and gaze upon the mountain of Amana. Al tikre Amana ela Emunah. Don't read Amana, rather Emunah. What is it? It's a prophecy about the world, about the time of Mashiach. The people will come and gaze from the top of Amana, the mountain tops of Amana, to Har
It
HaBayit.
doesn't make any sense how people like everything is so perfectly perfect in the world. So how can anyone like attribute like
Coincidence or something?
coincidence to everything? It doesn't make any sense. Even if let's say the Big Bang was like okay that worked, everything after that doesn't make any sense either. Like
The truth is though, you can't explain it. I can't explain to
We're trying
someone.
to explain things that happened so long ago. Either way, it's happened, and now we're here.
It's
Yeah.
not, bro. Has a scientist ever been in space, or has an atheist ever been in space, or a different galaxy? How the heck does he know?
But
How the heck does he
it's
know?
true.
Doesn't know.
But I mean, even
the moon landing never happened to one of those.
let's be real. Let's be
Lost
real.
our minds.
You can't explain it. No one can explain here why they believe in
Jeff,
God.
it's the moon.
No
This is
one.
not real.
And no seminary
I don't believe
will
it's-
ever help
it's cheap.
explain to a person why they believe in God.
And the fact
They
that,
won't.
and if you do find a reason, there's an issue because once you find a reason, it's
You can.
in 1 second.
Hold it.
it's just-
You're right. No, so faith cannot be explained, and that's why. That's why Emunah is for the Jew. No one else. Let the rest do whatever they gotta do, you know. But it's not our job to convince goyim to become Jewish. It's not. Our job is to work within the Jewish faith. You know why? Because the only way they can grab onto faith is the neshama. It's the Jewish spark. It's the only thing that's there that can be explained. It's the soul. Just like faith can be explained. It's the two things that match together. A Jew can have faith. Don't ask someone else to. Don't. You know what I mean? The entire idea is for the Jew to really grab onto the faith, but it has to be done simply.
You can't grab onto faith.
Yeah,
Silver,
you're
silver answer.
You're right. You're right. Oh wow, good call.
Cause you know the miracle thing, you're saying like you see nature as a
I'm
miracle.
going on a motorcycle, on a spiritual motorcycle.
So, what's that?
You know, you saw like Rav Zusha was saying how if you see nature as a miracle, then that's a thing.
Yeah,
It's
right,
just-
exactly.
That just seemed like
Right, 100%.
You that cold?
Yeah.
Oh, I really must.
And it's actually it's
So look-
Share Moharan. Brother ain't slept in a minute.
Good job, bro. Chazak.
You feel like that again.
I'm down to finish this little piece,
who's there?
Nobody.
but look where we go. It gets beautiful with the chametz and the matzah, so bear with me. No, I'm not gonna make you stay, bro. If you gotta go, you gotta go.
Oh, I feel like I was being.
No, God forbid, dude.
Also, just a very impressive take. You definitely like this.
Go.
There's between chametz and matzah. You have a chet, which is like covered on all sides. No room for anything to come in. Whatever your chachma has is already there. And then hey, you have like a little room for something.
Dude, it's wild. You know what it talks about?
It's such a breast up take, huh?
Carl.
Oh,
If you
don't
waited
even
a
tell me.
paragraph, it talks exactly.
let's sit down.
Is it
You
chidush?
want some coffee?
Everything's expensive.
It explains us in fact, but it's hilchot giluach. This is the beauty. Rabbi Nathan is explaining the Sod of Pesach in a halacha about shaving.
Ooh, I wanna hear
Is
this.
that what you sent to the group chat?
No, meaning it won't talk about the shaving, but it's in
Right now.
it's in Likutei Halachot giluach shaving.
Is that what you sent to the group chat one time or something
What?
like that? Or like, it's like,
Shiluach hakan. I've sent.
no, it's like alachot of shchita.
Of course, it doesn't make any because that's the beauty of Breast of Torah. What is it? It's to make everything find the practicality of it. What's the practicality behind something that we can't explain today, like things mitzvot that we don't have like today that they used to have back then? Thousand things.
Wait,
Bikurim.
what's the question again?
What's the how to find the practicality of a mitzvah that doesn't exist or today? Meaning we don't have the mitzvah today.
Like Korvana?
Korbanot or something that can't be understood really.
Speak like
Korbanot, but even the korbanot we can speak. But like other things, like we can't even do the mitzvah of Korban Pesach today. What's the sort of Korban Pesach?
Oh my god, some kid in my class was telling me that his rabbi was like saying they found a way to do the Korban Pesach and someone in his backyard is shechting like a
No.
goat for Korban. I was like,
Wow, you
dude,
guys
this
want to
kid-
make you
that.
guys
That's
want to make
vampirism.
you guys want to make
Kids in my
10K?
neighborhood are chirping, bro.
Anyone you want to make 10K? We'll split it. Eric, you're gonna make websites. Yes, okay.
Yeah,
So what happened last
You
year?
made, what did you make? You made two, the other week you told us you made two. What did you make? So listening to that.
Like 2 of anything.
Yeah, he did. He said he made 2 things with the antenna.
Listen, either way, last year in yeshiva, like last year, like my madrich in yeshiva put on his like story, like, yo, this is your chance. I was like, what? He's like, you can buy like a sheep because Mashiach's coming this year, so you can have like your korban pesach ready. I was like, how much does it cost? Like 25 shekel for one piece of what? Like a piece of your sheep. So comes out, this guy is so smart. He's making so much money. My madrich is just stupid for believing in him. But
Like, he bought it?
yeah, of course.
It's called a
I
scam.
thought he was
Oh, wow, dude, what's the guy gonna do with all the money now?
I hope he gives it to Sadaka.
This was last year though.
It's called a
And
scam.
doesn't
It's
burn
stealing.
in hell.
I really hope he used it.
I just tell people we have the power to do money. We need money to keep it healthy.
We're holding it hostage. Send me $3 million.
We're building a facility to make sure like it doesn't get
That's
contaminated.
insane.
I have the part about this kid got in red and sent a picture.
That's South Park.
Look what he says. אבל באמת גם האמונה צריכים להחיות על ידי השכל. Look, Jacoby, look at this. It's insane. But in truth, the emunah needs to be brought to life with what? Sechel, intellect, which is exactly what we were talking about. Finding God in everything. Right? It can't, emunah is built because of that. Meaning the reason I saw God in this thing or this event or stuff like that, right?
It's my Instagram bio.
What?
Find Hashem and everything.
Oh, it's key. It's everything. ומי שהוא חזק באמונה הקדושה, and one who's strong in this holy אמונה, אז כל מה שנתוסף לו דעת ושכל הוא יודע שהרחוק עדיין. Only with אמונה can you understand that the more wisdom you get, and the more da'at and awareness you get, the more you understand how far you are from true wisdom. ונתחזקה אצלו האמונה ביותר. And then your faith gets even strengthened more because you realize how far you are from it.
Does that discourage you?
No.
What?
Because the constant
Realizing
search.
how far you are? You're like,
No.
It's that baki b'ratzon, baki b'shov. You have to be a master in running and master in turning. When you're very low, you have to strengthen yourself up by telling yourself God's right next to you. The good points, I find this, that. You always have to strengthen yourself with the good points. But also, there's a time to reflect in the day where you say. And the more you study, the more you realize actually how little you know. It's true though. It's really true. Yediyah shlema is not possible. True knowledge. It's not on our level. Rabbeinu can attain that because he understands how little he knows. More than anyone. Rabbeinu more than anyone understood that he knew the least. You know? Because he understood the infiniteness of God to the highest degree. Meaning the more how you understand how big God is, the more you realize how low you are. No matter how big you can get. And that's what separated Rabbeinu. Meaning his greatness is the fact that he realized he was so low. It's humility. So look what he writes. The more faith you have, the more you realize that even with the amount of knowledge that you have, the more you study, the more you know, the less you know. Because he said, what's the tachlis? What's the final purpose? Tachlis, right? What's the tachlit hayediyah? What's the final purpose of knowledge? The final point is understanding that you know nothing. This is what it means whenever the matzah is written with the hay, right? There's a separation, there's an empty space between the dalid and the yud. How do you create a hay? A dalid and the yud in the inside. Look what he writes. Die. The sod about it. We write this in the Haggadah. Not that one.
Do you guys hit each other with those things?
Diachalu avatana.
You guys want to do that?
It's a Persian thing.
Avadim ayinu b'mitzrayim diachalu. He explained what
I've never seen like.
You got like big, I think, are they onions or scallops, and like you hit each other with them. You sing the song.
Do you
I think it's a Persian custom, by the way.
Oh really? Yeah.
I
do
think
you
so.
wave the plate over the head?
No.
So look what he writes. There's this empty space between the dalit and the yud. Why? The dalit represents emunah. The yud and the yud represents knowledge. Because the dalit has the dalit, it's the emunah. But what's the yud? The yud is the sechel that you incorporate into the emunah. We were just talking about how do you build up emunah? By using sechel, intellect, by finding God in different things and by finding God in your life. So what are you doing? You're plugging the yud into the dalit. You're plugging the sechel, the chokhmah, into the emunah. But what must you have? You must have an opening, an empty space. ופתח, an opening בין הדלת שהיא בחינת האמונה, an opening between the dalet, which is אמונה, and the yud, which is חוכמה. להורות, to teach, שאף על פי שכבר זכה להמשיך לעצמו איזה חוכמה, that even though you begin to draw into yourself some little חוכמה, which is the yud, ודעת, and some little awareness, שהוא בחינת היוד, which is the yud, which is within the hey, אף על פי כן, even though you think you have חוכמה and da'at, and you begin to draw on yourself this stuff, עודנו מחזיק בטומאתו, כבתחילה. You still begin to rely on your simplicity as it was.
But how is Yud the Chokhmah?
So Yud represents this. We know Yud. What do you call it? The letter Yud out of Yud K Vav K represents the Sfira of Chokhmah. And Dalet is Emunah. Why? Then we can explain like this. Shir Pashut Kaful Meshulash Mehubah. The song that's single, double, triple, quadrupled. It's the song of the Mashiach. Mashiach is this aspect of Emunah we're talking about. But Dalet is Emunah, and it's contained within it Sechel. But the more Sechel you bring into yourself, why is there an empty space? To show that as much Chokhmah as you have, the more you realize you must rely only on Emunah. Because there's no perfect Chokhmah. You're far from Chokhmah. כי יודע ומאמין שעדיין אינו יודע כלל, ומתחזק רק אמונה. You realize you know nothing and you only strengthen yourself with faith. On the contrary, אתה now, הוא יודע ומשיג ביותר, איך אי אפשר לדעת אותו יתברך. The more you study,
what do you think is like more of like a higher level? Simple faith of someone that doesn't reach the Chokhmah to like, or the people that like learns everything to finally learn it. Alright, it's all based on faith, and you have to throw the Chokhmah out.
The truth is you cannot get to that understanding without studying first. The greater your study, the more you realize how low you are. That's why the tzaddikim attain what to do. You can only attain it with real Torah study.
I always thought like Sfaradim in general, they have a strong faith in like God, right? And like Emunah, and like more based like
faith in tzaddikim. A lot of faith in tzaddikim also. That's a lot of the reason why. It's simple. It's not as intellectual. That's where.
Whereas Ashkenazim, they need to have like.
It's you look at where. I mean, logically, it's true. You're not wrong. A lot of Sephardic foundation is based on stories of tzaddikim and simple faith.
Yeah.
Whereas Ashkenazim they are intellectual, but they have the capacity also to attain a level of faith if they use it properly. In the idea that it's not chokhmah just to know. That's why Rabbeinu attained what he did, because he studied so much and he understood God so much to the point where he realized there's no understanding. Meaning, look, if I take myself, right, I have this level of understanding, but who understands God more? Me or the tzaddik of the generation? Obviously the tzaddik of the generation. Which means what? The more you understand God, and God is infinite, the more you realize how literal you are compared to that infiniteness. Meaning right now, I think I'm some level.
But if you have the faith, like let's say, okay, I just learned that now, so I have faith that that's true. So now should I go seek out Chokhmah anyways? Or?
Of course you do. Because you're constantly, with the more Chokhmah you reach, that's what he's saying. The more you implement into the hay, of matzah, the more you have to realize there's a space between the yud and the daled. What's the daled? It's emunah. You have to realize that you really don't understand anything. And the more chokhmah with that, the more you can understand that. Before you get to the daled, you get to the yud first. With chokhmah, you get to the understanding that you really know nothing.
Was that far away from finishing?
I'm literally 4 lines away from finishing it up. Or like 5 lines or whatever it is.
What should I do with this? Is it pita bread?
Figure it out in a second, wait up.
Do you do?
That's what I learned.
ואיך צריכים להתחלק באמונה מאוד יותר מאוד, אבל אינו סותם חס ושלום על ידי החוכמה שהשיג את פתח האמונה חס ושלום. כי זהו בחינת חמץ בחטא. He's saying, what's the problem with the chet of chametz? The yud then became sealed in. It became connected. There's no empty space now between the dalid and the yud inside the hay.
What was that?
It's the aspect of understanding that as much wisdom as I understand, there's always this space that I really understand nothing. But when you connect the yud and the dalid, you realize that there's no difference between your chokhmah and emunah. It's like you're saying that Chokhmah is attainable.
It's like a philosophy and that stuff.
Exactly.
Moshe, what do you do with leftover bread? Do you,
You have to keep it. You really should eat it.
I haven't known.
I know it's tough.
Even like the crumbs.
Keep it for tomorrow. Feed it to birds at least or something. I don't know.
Even on the bench, some people
Never throw out bread.
Why not?
It's really אבל אין לו סותם חס ושלום. But don't seal the yud and the chet together. Don't seal it. Why? Because don't think that you have a chokhmah. You must always keep that opening for faith. This is the aspect of the chametz with the chet. What's he saying? שהפתח והחלב סתום. The opening and that empty space are now sealed. שהוא בחינת חימוץ המוח ובחינת קיט חמץ רבים. It's asking what? You're making your brain chametz now. It's philosophy.
Wow,
It's
crazy.
דהיינו שעל ידי החוכמה והדעת שהשיג, meaning that through the chokhmah and the data that you understand about God, על ידי זה הוא נדמה בעיניו שכבר הוא חכמה בשלמות. What's the problem with chametz? You realize that you think you're chacham.
Wow, that's crazy. That's why
It's
one
the
of my
opposite.
favorite lines now. Your brain is chametz.
Your brain is chametz. Meaning the more chokhmah you have, if it's not in kedusha, if your chokhmah is not in kedusha, the more you think you know. The more kedusha it is, the more emunah you have, the more you realize the less you know. So look what he says, and we're like 4 lines out, whatever it is. He said that I know earlier, I just need to grab you guys. עד שרוצה לסמוך על חוכמתו לבד ואינו משתמש עוד באמונה. Until you rely only on your chok. That the problem was what's the chet of chametz, where you only rely on chokhmah only, and you don't use emunah. שזה בחינת chet. This is the aspect of chet. שכבר נסתם פתח הדלת. You close the opening of the door, which is the dalet. דהיינו פתח האמונה, which is the opening of faith. כי סובר שכבר נתחכם לגמרי. You think you already have become wise already. ועד נתחמץ לבבו, your heart becomes chametz לכפירות, with heresy, and no, חד ושלום, על ידי זה, through this chokhmah that you get, you lead to heresy, ונתרחק לגמרי חד ושלום מהשם יתברך. And unfortunately, you can completely get lost from God. So it's a very big inyan.
So why do we eat chametz all year?
Because once we have the Torah, then you can attain the chokhmah. Meaning, we didn't have the Torah yet. So what must we only rely on? The matzah, which is emunah. You see the beauty of the soul behind that?
You're saying in the desert, what's up?
Until we get the Torah, we can only rely on emunah.
So
But once we have the Torah, we can have chokhmah and
So technically, what we should be doing really is not eat chametz until Shavuot. And then we receive the Torah.
it's the inyan that I think.
Oh, but we harvest during the 7 weeks.
That's
during
nice.
Pesach Shavuot. So technically, I guess you can. I don't know.
I think so. You're beginning to collect. It's the preparation for the Torah.
Right, so I guess you could. You
But-
taste here and there.
It's a beautiful soul.
How long was the recording?